guys, this is Alachi, and this is my review for The Substance. I wasn't going to review this film because I didn't really want to watch it, but quite a few people had asked in the comments section for me to review this film. And just kind of as an experiment, because I had an idea of what this film was going to be like, I was like, well, why not just see? So I did just watch it. And I have a lot of thoughts. This will be a spoiler review because I really feel like in order to talk about what this film means, what this film is trying to say, I think you do have to talk about it as a whole, about everything that happens with the main character and her transformation. And I think that you cannot avoid spoilers. So The Substance is written and directed by Caroline Farget. She created a film that she wanted to be symbolic, I think, and create a lot of imagery about what it means to be a woman whose entire purpose, existence, and fulfillment in life is completely dependent on her looks. So this film stars Margaret Qualley and Demi Moore. Demi Moore playing a older version of a character named Elizabeth, and Margaret Qualley playing a younger, hotter version of the character who split off from the original character Elizabeth Sparkle. This film is super shallow. There is no depth to any of the characters. They have no personality. She has no interests. She has no ability to really think outside of what she is to everyone else in society as how she was perceived by what people want and desired. Elizabeth Sparkle is the classic cliche of a Hollywood actress who is loved for her youth, beauty, sexiness, and over time, those looks faded and she grew old. And right now in her career in this film, she is now no longer a Hollywood star, but she does still have a fitness television show on network television. And she's just still enjoying herself because she's still liked, she's still loved, she's still wanted, she still has a job, and she's still on television showcasing mostly just her figure, her body. And the idea is that the studio basically decides she has reached her expiration date and they want to fire her. And she is distraught because this pretty much ends she's reached the longevity you can in terms of what people value in society when it comes to youth and beauty. And she has to really take that in, and she melts, completely has a breakdown. As you will see in society, if you ever meet someone who has spent their entire life getting all of their self-worth from their looks, it is an ugly, hideous journey for them when they lose that value. I have seen it. It is terrible. You'll never get it back. And the entirety of your life at that point becomes monstrous, which I think this film does really well. So while I said this film was shallow, I think it's meant to be. I think it's meant to really showcase what it's like for a woman who has nothing, absolutely nothing, besides what society defines as, what societal norms of beauty and youth are. And if there's nothing else, then at the end of the day, you're either a monster or you are a hot sexual object of desire. And those are the only two things. And it is a very shallow existence. And so I think that it works with this film in that it's incredibly shallow, that there's nothing to this Elizabeth character, aside from her pursuit of wanting to be a better version of herself. In this case, the better version being the younger version of herself, or a more desired version of herself, one that hasn't reached an expiration date. And so Elizabeth gets into a car wreck because on her way home, she's seeing they're tearing down her billboard poster, and she's not paying attention, and she gets into a wreck, and she ends up in the hospital where a mysterious young nurse takes a look at her spine and is like, you'd make a really good candidate. And you can see from he's looks kind of artificially very young, blue eyes, very striking. And he slips her a note with a little USB stick that says the substance, and it gives her a number to call. And she's, of course, sort of in denial at first, but then she realized just how absolutely miserable she is, as people do become when they've reached this state of their life. And they'll do pretty much anything at this point. And this is where the substance can symbolize so many different things. The substance could symbolize people's desire to put injections in their faces, Botox. It can also symbolize the amount of work they'll have done to their faces. And in this case, I think Demi Moore is perfectly cast because she is the embodiment of someone who really propelled off of her looks and her sexuality, and she is probably in that exact moment of her life where she has tried extensive amounts of things, including, from what it looks like, really bad plastic surgery, or who knows what that she did to her face in order to keep her youthful appearance. So to me, the substance can symbolize so many things that women will do in society to hold on to a certain ideal of themselves. And you often look at these women who have extraordinary beauty, and you see what they will do to themselves, and it seems terrible, because you're just thinking, you're so beautiful, why are you doing this to yourself? And it's because they absolutely, the idea of not looking that way, of letting themselves transfer into a more mature version of themselves, an older version of themselves, someone whose face is not as elastic, someone whose face has more wrinkles. That's not in the equation. It is absolutely 0% in the equation. And the reason is because they have put so much value in the idealized version of what society deems as youthful and beautiful, that to not look that way for them is to become a monster. And because the standards no longer align with that reality of what beauty is to society. And most women whose soul values lie in that cannot be a monster. It's just not acceptable. And so they will go through extreme measures to hang on to it. And in this case, Elizabeth is willing to have a part of her duplicated from the substance, and a whole different version of her emerges out of her back. This is a body horror. And a part of me thinks that it is symbolic, the body horror, but another part of me thinks, no, we really will butcher ourselves into turning into monsters, right? Like, you've seen this happen. It's not even symbolic. It's not even a metaphor. Women will do this to themselves. So anyways, yes, out of the back of Demi Moore's Elizabeth character emerges Margaret Qualley's Sue. Just this voluptuous, luscious, perfect boobs, itty bitty waist, voluminously smooth as silk ass. The perfect symbol of everything today we value in terms of our society with sexuality. And she emerges like Venus out of Demi Moore's Elizabeth and she is Sue. Now, there's a sci-fi element here as to how this works, and it just never is explained, and it really doesn't need to be explained because that's not the point of the film, I think. And if you do focus on that, you'll probably be pretty lost. But basically, it's a creation. It's a creation formed, and I think the creation is symbolic of your idea of what you should look like for society. And I think that's what Sue represents in terms of being birthed from Elizabeth. And so she goes back, Sue, with her hot young body, to get the job that Elizabeth lost from being old and outdated. And the studio loves her, just loves her. She is just hotness, sexy, 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 sexy. I mean, booty shot, twerk, 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 booty shot, twerk, twerk, twerk. And, just salivating all over her. And the imagery is exactly what you would expect. And I think the movie does that very well in showcasing, like, this is what everyone bursts from their mind in terms of, like, if they value these things, how much they would strive to be that this is what you would sacrifice, being yourself for, if you could get that adoration, that admiration, that love. Now, unfortunately, with all things to do with external appearances, you will always fall short because your relationship with yourself is so shallow that you can only really view yourself as an object to either be desired or criticized. And when you are admired, you're on top of the world. Your relationship with yourself is you're in love with yourself, right? But the minute you are criticized, the minute you lose that adoration, you turn to self-loathing. You become hideous. And it's just, this mindset will always perpetuate self-doubt. You'll always be trying to obtain a goal that is absolutely unobtainable. And it's just not realistic to hold so much value in a vessel that is just not going to endure, because that is the nature of life. As a human being on this planet, you will never be as youthful and as young as you were a second ago. That's just not possible, at least not with today's technology, right? And so to put so much value on the impermanence of these external attributes is really robbing yourself of lasting, of Elizabeth's character being able to have a life past 50 or 60 where she's happy, because she has not obtained anything in herself that truly endures the test of time. Which are, the relationship with yourself that has to do with your own character, your relationship with other people, your quality of life, your qualities of experiences, your enjoyment of knowledge, of seeking value in things that have nothing to do with your external vessel. And so, of course, at a certain point, the ideal version of Elizabeth Sue starts to take over Elizabeth entirely, rotting her body. And Sue keeps abusing the laws and the rules that are set in place by the substance. And it is turning Elizabeth into this decrepit old hag. And, the body horror here gets far, far more gross, more visual. It's you've got titties that have deflated into pancakes. You've got skin that's just layering on top of each other and dried, and all the things that, honest to God, really happen to women's bodies. I know they happen to men's bodies as well, but for women, I think it's like 1,000 times worse. But it's a reality of what will happen to your body as it decays. You will eventually, those voluptuous, gorgeous boobs will eventually turn into flat pancakes. And if you have giant boobies in your 80s and 70s, depending on how you've taken care of yourself, you might have to be lifting those pancakes up, and you have rashes and dead skin, and it just gets really, it's the reality of it is nothing that Hollywood ever celebrates, because it is honestly it's the body decaying, and there's nothing we really celebrate about that in terms of our vessel, because nobody wants a vessel that's becoming outdated. Nobody. I mean, even if you take it outside of the youthful appearance or your value to society in terms of your appearance, nobody wants a body that doesn't work anymore. And there's nothing that's sexy about that. And it's sad. It's sad. But unfortunately, it is a reality, because we are human and we will age and we will decay. And at some point, our bodies will fail us the ability to do the things we once were able to do. And that is just the facts of life. This is inevitable until there's some sort of science and technology or biological breakthrough. This happens to every single person on the planet without fail. And it's crazy to me that this is an absolute fact of life. And yet you, as a young person, especially as a young woman, to then put yourself in a situation in which you are putting so much of yourself and your life and your values about yourself into something that will not endure is so painful to watch, because you know what's coming. You know what's going to happen to them. And this is exactly what happens to Sue in this case, in which she's exhausted. This basically exhausted her ability to use her old self to keep herself youthful. And she decides to then replicate herself, and a version of her best self then emerges out of her, and it is what most would consider an absolute monstrosity, because she is not the original version. So I think at this point we really take off into the absolute symbolism of what ugliness truly is, and that is this perpetual cycle of chasing a better version of yourself will morph you into something that has a boob growing out of your ear, an eyeball here, and an ear here, and a face on your back, and your arms just completely, it's just a mutation. It's an absolute mutation. And I think it perfectly symbolizes how ugly and monstrous it is an idea to put yourself in that situation where everything you value is dependent on someone else deciding if you're worth something. And then, of course, the film just erupts into absolute bloodshed and just grossness, because, of course, nobody accepts this version of Sue or Elizabeth because it's too hideous. And she's sitting there trying to present herself as this... I think it's called Eliza Sue or Elizabeth Sue, Elizabeth, I don't know. Anyway, an amalgamation of the two. And the audience is absolutely horrified at what they're seeing. They come in and they beat her up and they bloody her up, and her body parts are falling off and blood squirting everywhere. And it's an absolute disgusting mess, because everyone's turned on her. She's no longer young hotness. And I think that's just the only thing that can happen, is that you eventually say, hey, I'm still myself. I still feel great. I'm Sue. I'm Elizabeth. You guys all loved me. I'm still that same person. Despite the fact that I've got, an arm growing out of my back and, an ear on the top of my head and a boob coming out of my neck, I don't understand. It's still me. It's me. And that's the thing that really happens to these women, is that they grow older, they lose their value from society, but they're still themselves. It's still them, right? And so they don't understand why everyone else is so disgusted by them. Like, nothing changed. I'm still that same person, but your outward appearance is so hideous to everyone, and you've put so much value in that you've given them the power to decide that you're hideous. And while I thought all of this stuff was very interesting to showcase, I didn't want to watch this film because I already know this story. I've seen this story play out, and it's a horror story. It is terrible to watch, and sure enough, this film was the same way. It was a horror show, and it was tough, really tough to watch, especially because the film focuses so much on just presenting you the facts and giving you an idea of the situation, that the one thing it does not do is show you a way to lift that paradigm. And maybe that's really because the director and writer just doesn't know how to, because it's really true. Despite the fact that it's inevitable, that there are these facts of life, that there is an inevitability, that people still do this to themselves over and over and over again. And maybe there is no real way to tell people that you need to have this massive paradigm shift away from things that are temporary and fickle, like societal norms, and focus on things that are actually valuable, which is, your character and your relationships and the way you view the world and what you can actually bring to other people besides just looking beautiful. And it's possible that there is really no way to give people that information because most people don't want to hear it, because the lure of chasing that star, of being that loved and desired object will always overpower the sensibility of doing what's probably best for yourself in the long run. And, it's sad. But, it's a very interesting, thought-provoking experiment that I think this film does very well in terms of trying to showcase the reality of the situation that happens to young women all over the world in a form that I think most people can probably understand. But it's horrible. It's horrible to watch. So I applaud this film for what it was trying to do. I just didn't like watching it because I don't like watching it in real life. So I'm going to give The Substance a C+. The film is incredibly simple, and I think it's meant to be. It's incredibly shallow, which I think it's meant to be. And there really isn't much to the film besides the points I made. Yet, I think that it has immense value in terms of offering a discussion about this reality and offering a discussion of what this reality will mean for so many people, despite if they want to see it or not. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you guys thought about The Substance if you've seen it. What did it mean to you? Do you think my assessment of the film was correct? Or do you see something different that maybe I'm missing? All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. And if you'd like to watch more, you can click right here or right here to watch more now. Until next time, see you on the flip side.